Hi there everyone, GuardianE here with another live reaction and first impression video for Fire Emblem Heroes. Tonight we are getting the reveal of the next set of special hero seasonals to drop into the game in just a few short days. We do have the silhouettes up here right now. And of course, based on this, obviously, the banner is going to be child variants. That's going to be the theme of the banner. Not my favorite theme. Generally speaking, not really that interested in the baby units, I have to admit. Just not really my cup of tea, not really that interesting to me. That being said, the kid units tend to be pretty strong or busted, so I am expecting some really ridiculous units and skills on this banner, but we'll just have to see. That silhouette on the right does look suspiciously like Soren, so I am going to guess that this is probably going to be Path of Radiance inspired, Path of Radiance themed, but I've got the trailer pulled up. Let's go ahead and watch it together for the first time, blind, and see what they've got in store for us. Alright. Words can build the future. Special heroes to battle. Is that a reference to something? I don't know. That is Mia! Wow, okay. Budding Blade. So, we are going to be getting a baby Mia. It's going to be a cavalry, infantry sword unit, sharp war sword, flashing blade 4, the tempo skill, I see. Alright. Even her sprite is very tiny. It's very cute. Oh, yep, that is definitely Soren, hushed voice. Love the lightning effect from the tome, that is pretty nice. He is going to be a colorless tome unit. Adroit, War Tome, Iceberg, Mirror Impact, Times Pulse 3. I am curious about that weapon description. That is a cool attack animation for sure. Oh, Awakened Appetite. I wonder if she was as hungry back then. I guess so, right? Maybe more so. Illyana, she is going to be an infantry green tome unit. And she was probably going to be the 4-star special unit. So, Windy War Tome. So, she's going to have a unique tome, which is nice. Actually, if there is a 4-star special unit, because I can't remember if they always give us a 4-star special unit on the child banner. And that does look like it is going to be close-knit siblings Ike and Mist. That sword is as big as Ike is. He is going to be an infantry sword unit. Sturdy War Sword. Okay. Distant Dart. Null Sea Disrupt. And there he goes. Honestly, without his bandana, he's almost, you can't even recognize him as Ike. It's just so iconic for him. So the duo skill. Sprites are very small. And even smaller as the duo. Nah. Here I go. So he does have sturdy ether, or I mean radiant ether. Unlikely Friends is going to be the paralog story, and. Alright, so freeze framing here, it does look like we are going to be getting a child infantry axe unit with green hair. I don't know who that is, but I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments below. So that does confirm that at least we're going to be getting one unit for free, and that is going to be an infantry axe unit. So starting on the 7th of April, and then the rest of the is going to just talk about the Spark if you are a FEH Pass subscriber. So yeah, starting on the 7th of April and going for an entire month thereabouts, Illyana, the green unit on the banner, is going to be the 4-star focus unit as we expected, and there is going to be color sharing on the red stone, and the duo is going to be on the red stone as well. So yeah, I mean, I think most people that saw the silhouettes kind of guessed this combination of units. Ike Mist was definitely on the table when we consider the fact that that Soren was going to be a unit there. And then I think Mia was a pretty high contender for the left silhouette there. Illyana, wasn't really expecting that, but I'm glad to see her here represented. So let's rewind and take a closer look at their skills. So Mia is going to come with her own unique weapon. It is a 16 might sword, sharp war sword. Has a killer slaying effect. If a skill compares unit speed to a foe's or ally speed, treats unit speed as if granted plus 10. At start of turn, if unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants null follow-up and dodge to unit for 1 turn. If unit initiates combat or is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants +5 to all stats to unit during combat. So that is interesting. We haven't seen that stat comparison modifier outside of those specific skills, I don't think, certainly not within a weapon before. So that is pretty unique. Killer Slaying effect is always going to be very, very solid. And then essentially, as long as she is initiating combat or within 2 spaces of an ally, she's going to get all of her effects. So very, very easy condition for her weapon as a whole. Getting null follow-up, getting dodge, and then getting +5 to all of her stats as well. And then she gets the +5 if she's player phasing, irrespective of her position with respect to other units, or her allies, I should say. So the whole +10 thing, obviously that is going to synergize very, very well with Flashing Blade 4 that I see with her on her A slot. Flashing Blade 4, of course, is going to give 5 true damage as well as an additional special charge as long as she outspeeds her opponent. And so that is going to come in handy there. Dragon Fang for the special. Speed Defense Tempo 3 for the B slot. Inflict speed defense -3 on foe and neutralize effects that grant special cooldown charge +X to foe, or inflict special cooldown charge -X on unit during combat. Now that is quite nice. The -3 to speed and defense is going to make sure she does more damage. It's also going to help her proc that Flashing Blade 4, which she definitely wants. And then the fact that it neutralizes effects that inflict special cooldown charge -X on her means that she will effectively guarantee herself the Flashing Blade effect. So that's very, very good. And the fact that she has a -1 cooldown on her weapon, that's a Killer Slaying effect. Dragon Fang has a 3-turn cooldown. The Flashing Blade proccing means that she is going to get at least 2 charge per attack. So that's pretty nice. Odd Tempest 3 for the C slot. At start of odd number turns, unit can move 1 extra space. That's a pretty nice gimmicky C slot skill. We see that more and more often as kind of this, this surprise blitz attack, as an infantry acting as a pseudo-cavalry, in a manner of speaking. So it has its uses for sure. So for Mia here, I like the synergy, I like the cohesion with her kit, especially the fact that she's kind of all in on the speed, which is sort of Mia's thing anyway, a lot, as a Myrmidon, as all Myrmidons are, but essentially that +10 effect when doing a calculation with the speed modifier, that's going to help Flashing Blade. That's going to help her dodge with damage reduction built in. It's going to help her to actually double, and then she's also going to double with impunity because of the null follow-up effect as well. So all of these things are basically geared towards allowing her to naturally double, allowing her to enjoy damage reduction, and allowing her to proc her special, which is going to be a Dragon Fang, which will be exceedingly powerful. So all decent things, all decent things. Once again, the pool for red infantry is terribly saturated. So in terms of differentiating herself, she does have, I think, the longevity with that built-in +10 to the speed. And as more skills get introduced into the game in the future that do the speed check, she's going to be able to take advantage of those things. So I do like that differentiation of her from the rest of the pack a little bit. And that tempo skill is definitely very, very excellent. And then here's her attacking art. I think her art is very cute. It's nice and vibrant. I love her green eyes and purple hair. Really, really nice. And then in contrast, you have Soren here that looks a little on the dirty side of things. I mean, obviously, as part of the story, but he looks a little bit more disheveled. Looks a little bit grimmer. Adroit War Tome for his weapon. It's a 14 might, and it's going to be a colorless tome. So he is a colorless tome user, which is very interesting and it's still to date a pretty underrepresented classification and weapon type. So he's got that going for him right out of the gate. Has a Killer Slaying effect as well, seeing a theme here with the units on this banner. At start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, grants +6 to attack and res during combat, and the following effect will occur based on the value of unit's res minus foe's res. Okay, if greater than or equal to 1, unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack. If greater than or equal to 5, if foe uses sword, lance, axe, bow, dagger, or beast damage, so any physical type of damage, foe cannot counter-attack. And if greater than or equal to 10, reduces the percentage of foe's non-special reduce damage by X% skills by 50%. Example, a foe with a reduced damage by 45% skill would reduce damage by 23% instead. So he's not going to have damage reduction nullification. He's going to have damage reduction. Yeah, that's right. You heard that right. Damage reduction. Okay, well, taking a step back here, I mean, I think that the Killer Slaying effect is always going to be good. The +6 to attack and res is what he wants. He's going to be able to tank more hits. He's going to do more damage with Iceberg. And that additional res is going to help with the rest of his tome effect, which, again, it's going kind of all in, balls to the wall on one particular stat that's going to really have all of these additional snowball effects. And they're all very, very good. To the extent that he's able to get 10 res over his opponent that he's attacking into, guaranteed follow-up attack, foe cannot counterattack if they're melee, and bear in mind that since he's all in on the res stat, the fact that if he's all in on the res stat and he's attacking into a physical foe and they can't counterattack, he only really has to worry about his res stat, right? To an extent, right? I mean, obviously, with adaptive damage, that may not necessarily be the case, but in most cases, he only has to worry about his res stat defensively because a physical attacker will not be able to counterattack. And then thirdly, he's going to reduce damage reduction on the opponent. So all those damage reduction skills that are out there, he's going to be able to bypass or reduce the effectiveness of those for percentage ones. Bear in mind. So the two caveats here. First, it's for non-specials. So any specials that reduce damage, this will not have any effect. And for any flat damage reduction, so when we're talking about like a fixed number damage reduction, this is not going to play into that at all. It's just for those skills that have percent-based damage reduction, he'll reduce those. Iceberg for the special, that's going to hit really hard with all of his built-up res. Mirror Impact is going to be perfect for him. It's going to prevent double attacks back to him, and it's also going to increase his res, which he really, really wants. And then Times Pulse 3, if special cooldown count is at its maximum value, grants special cooldown count -1 at the start of the turn. So that Times Pulse is going to bring the Iceberg down to a 2-turn cooldown. The Killer Slaying effect of the weapon is going to bring it down to a 1-turn cooldown, and he makes a guaranteed follow-up attack with his weapon effect. So that does mean that whenever he initiates, he is going to double and proc that Iceberg. And with all that res, that Iceberg is going to hurt. So I like what they're doing here with Soren, in that, again, it's all in on a particular stat, and having all in on that stat, you get to reap these consecutive benefits. And those benefits all stacking together synergize pretty darn well with the rest of the kit, too. His entire goal is going to be to get as much res as possible. He's going to enjoy damage reduction, neutralize any counterattacks from really any threats to his weaker defensive stat, and he's going to proc that Iceberg, which is going to do tons of damage because, again, he wants to stack that res. So, honestly, and he's a colorless Tomio, so he has neutral damage against all enemies out there. So, he's got that going for him as well. I think it's a well-realized, well-thought-out kit. I think it's good. And there he is. Again, I really do like the crackling electricity, and I love the sprite animation. I think it's super neat. Alright, so next is Illyana. She is going to be an infantry green tome unit, and here is her weapon unique to her, Windy War Tome. So it's 14 might, grants res +3. If foe initiates combat or a foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75% at start of combat, inflicts -6 to attack and res on foe during combat. And also, if unit's res is greater than foe's res, reduces damage from attacks during combat and from AoE specials by percentage equal to difference between stats times 4, max 40%, and also if unit's res is greater than or equal to foe's res +5, foe cannot make a follow-up attack. Alright, so this is definitely a little bit more measured of a tome. She is the 4-star focus unit, so you kind of come to expect that a little bit, but it is unique to her, so it is decked out with different effects. Now, it is going to, similar to Soren, it is going to be heavy on the res focus, so you do want to stack as much res as possible, and built into the tome, it's going to give the res +3. It's also going to have the debuff on the enemy's res, so that helps with that res check with the opponent. Because not only is it going to ask or check to see if her res is higher than her opponent, it's also going to check to see if her res is higher than or equal to her foe's res +5. But at the end of the day, calculations aside, she just wants to have as much res over her opponent as possible because she's going to enjoy the damage reduction, and then she's also going to ensure that her opponent cannot follow up attack, which are fine things to have in there. And then the -6 to attack and res is certainly going to be helpful in proccing that, as well as just allowing her to do more damage and take less damage, in addition to the damage reduction. So I do think the tome it does work amidst itself. All of these effects swirling together, I think they do work together. Glacies, for the special, lull attack res 3, that's a great B-slot skill, attack and res -3 on foe, and neutralize foes' bonuses to attack and res during combat. And attack res gap 3 for the C slot. At start of turn, grants attack res +5 to ally with the highest attack plus res total for one turn, excludes unit. I don't really like the gap skills. I think there are just way better options. Even the activated buff really isn't that significant compared to what we have out there. I feel like it's a little bit outclassed in that regard. And then the condition itself, I think, is really odd just because you would only really want this on a support unit. It's a map-wide buff, it's an activated buff, but I really don't value those things really that much in the context of limiting it to a support unit. The lull skill is fantastic, and having the lull skill on a 4-star focus unit is great. I mean, that's great fodder. So people that want this lull skill, and it's a pretty useful one. This could definitely be an opportunity to grab copies of it. And then again, Glacies is going to work well with the Windy War Tome. Certainly her tome is not quite as potent or impressive as Soren's here, if you're just comparing them, side by side. She's also a green tome unit, not colorless, so that I think is a little bit of a detraction as well, just because it's not as rare of an archetype. But that being said, I do think that she's got some nice stuff, especially for a 4-star focus unit, and having her own unique tome. So that is nice. So let's see here. Gonna be very tanky, of course. And she's very cute there with the basket. Or tome. I thought it was a... Yeah, for some reason in my mind, I saw her carrying a picnic basket because she was talking about eating. But anyway, so here's the sibling duo of Ike and Mist, and they are going to be a sword infantry unit. Sturdy war sword, 16 might, grants attack +3. At start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, grants +5 to all stats to unit during combat, and if unit attack triggers special, following effects will occur based on the number of allies within 4 spaces of unit. That's very interesting. Okay. If greater than or equal to 1 before unit's first attack, grant special cooldown count minus X. X equals 50% of unit's max special cooldown count value rounded down to unit. If greater than or equal to 2, it reduces damage from foes' first attack by X%. X equals unit's max special cooldown count value times 10. And if greater than or equal to 3, neutralize effects that guarantee foes' follow-up attacks and effects that prevent units' follow-up attacks. Alright, well that is exceedingly convoluted. Let's break that down. Attack +3 at the start. And then at start of combat, if unit's HP has a certain threshold, just +5 to all stats during combat. That's very good. +3 attack, then +5 again to all stats. That is solid in and of itself. If units attack triggers special. So the fact that he has Radiant Ether means that it meets that condition. So if units attack trigger special, the following effects based on the number of allies within 4 spaces of unit. That's exceedingly easy to meet. Unless he's on the opposite side of the map, having 3 units around you, that's really not hard within 4 spaces of unit. That is a very generous buffer. So it's very easy to meet the 3 threshold here on a base team. But going through this consecutively, before unit's first attack grants special cooldown count minus X, which is 50% of max special cooldown value. Alright, so if I'm reading that right, what that means is that Radiant Ether has a 4-turn cooldown. 50% of that is 2. So that means that before his first attack, he gets a special cooldown count minus X, so -2. He gets an insta-charge of 2 on his Radiant Ether before he attacks. That's very interesting, and we haven't seen anything like that before. I think most notably, this bypasses the whole Elamine debuff that's like it neutralizes at the start of turn effects and things like that. Since it's like right before he attacks, he gets the effect. Again, if I'm reading that right. I don't know how I feel about that, because it kind of seems like it's intended to counter Elamine's effect, even though like we just got Elamine really not that long ago, and quite frankly, I think that effect is a little overrated. It hasn't even had time to breathe, and it feels like they're already introducing a pseudo counter to it in a way, which I think they're moving a little bit too quickly. I think they need to let things breathe a little bit before they start just like adding counters to counters to counters to counters. I think that's just been a problem recently. I don't like that game design philosophy in general. You always have to introduce, whether it's direct or indirect counters to things, but I also think that you need to let the game evolve naturally and live. Anyway, not to get too ranty about that, that does seem to be what the intent is behind the first effect here. And then if greater than or equal to 2, reduces damage from foe's first attack by X%. So times 10 to the cooldown, so that is going to be, in this case, 40%. That's pretty solid, I gotta say. That is irrespective of whether or not it's on enemy phase or player phase. So the first attack, it's just going to enjoy a 40% damage reduction. And then if greater than or equal to 3, neutralize effects that guarantee foes follow-up attacks and effects that prevent units follow-up attacks. So just sort of neutralizing and making things equalized. Any skills that would either force or negate follow-up attacks, this just kind of dispels them. So overall, considering how easy it is for this condition to meet and how potent these individual things are, that's quite substantial. The fact that he gets that charge right before his first attack is really unique to him. I don't think that exists in the game on any other character, but although I anticipate we're going to be seeing that a lot more in the relative near future, but that being the case, it only gives him 50% charge. So we haven't seen his duo skill yet. I'm going to guess at this point and predict that his duo skill is also going to just provide like a 2-turn cooldown charge or something like that. I don't know. We'll see in just a second. But his special is Radiant Ether. 4 cooldown. During combat, treats foes' defense res as if reduced by 50%. And then restores HP equal to 50% of damage dealt. Very, very good. Distant Dart for the A slot, unit can counterattack regardless of foe's range. If foe initiates combat, grant speed +5 to unit during combat. So, interestingly enough, this doesn't necessarily synergize or tie into the Sturdy Warsword at all, the speed boost. It's not like he relies on the speed boost. Although what I will say is that that should indicate that maybe he's just a speedy Ike. As a younger Ike, I guess maybe he's just quicker runt before he grew too big for his own good and slow. So the 5 is going to allow him to actually naturally double, which does work well with the Sturdy Warsword that prevents or disables anything that would prevent his follow-up attacks. Null C Disrupt 3 for the B slot, neutralize effects that prevent units' counterattacks during combat. That's fine. That's a fine choice for the B slot. There's plenty of other choices you could go for the B slot as well, but that does sort of round out some different counters that you might face against Ike here. And then Joint Drive Attack. Grants attack +4 to allies within 2 spaces during combat. If unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants attack +4 to unit during combat. I think the joint drive skills are actually really versatile, really flexible, and really powerful, so I think that's a great choice for the C-slot skill. If you want something more specialized, depending on your team composition, you can certainly swap that in, but that is a good generalist C-slot skill for him and them. So yeah, let's see here. Sturdy Warsword, and it's very cute that he's guarding Mist there. So let's take a look at the duo skill. Inflicts attack speed -7 and guard on foes within 5 rows or 5 columns centered on unit through their next actions, and inflicts special cooldown count +2 on those foes. Interesting. I did not expect that really. So I was expecting the opposite. I was expecting you to get an additional special cooldown count charge on Ike. Instead, what you're getting is actually a special cooldown count debuff, so to speak, on the enemy. And it's actually a straight debuffing duo skill. Can be used once per map, right? Okay. So the attack speed -7 and guard on foes within 5 rows and columns. That's a huge area of effect around him, all the way down the entire map. Attack speed -7 is potent. Guard as well on them is going to be potent, disallowing them to gain special charge. And then to the extent that they had their special already charged, inflict special cooldown count +2 on those foes. So it's a universal debuffing effect that has huge range, and it's going to really debilitate the enemy's ability to do good damage. Very cute. And yeah, you get the cooldown and you get the guard effect on them. And there they go into attacking. Go get him, Ike. And there is the Radiant Ether. Okay. Alright. Yeah, so Unlikely Friends starting on the 7th of April and extending for essentially an entire month. I actually do like how they've set up the kits for these particular units. I think it's interesting that they're basically geared towards full investment and stacking on a particular stat to take full advantage of it. In the case of Ike, it's a little bit different in that it's the number of allies around him. However, he may as well just not have it. I mean, the condition is so easy to meet. It requires basically no investment at all. And then you have Ike with the pre-attack special charge, which is pretty unique. You have Mia with the speed check condition with the plus 10 that gets added on to that condition for her, just to make it easier for her to proc that, which again I think is relatively unique. So they're introducing some unique things in here, and again I think the design philosophy as far as like the full investment on a particular stat, I think that's kind of cool. But they don't blow me away either. I don't think any of these units are like must-haves. I think that, again, I think Ike does kind of circumvent the whole Elamine start of turn charge thing. I don't think that's really that important. I don't think any of the units are really must-haves. But I think they're going to be good. And I might be misremembering, but I do feel like previous years' child units tended to be more busted than this. You know, maybe it's all relative because things have changed a lot in the past year. So it could just be that it could just be that in relative terms, it felt like they were more busted, whatever that might be. But it feels a little bit. Don't get me wrong. They do seem powerful. It's just the child banners I feel like have always been like, for some reason, really ridiculous. And they don't seem like really ridiculous here or anything. They seem really good, but they don't seem really ridiculous. For me personally, I'm not really going to be summoning on this banner beyond the poverty pulls. I'm just going to do my freebie pulls, and that's basically it. Again, I'm just not really that interested in baby units. That's just a personal thing. I'm just not terribly interested in them. So yeah, I'm just not really going to be going in on this. But I do think that the banner's good. I mean, going in on red, you have color sharing there, and both the duo and Mia are very strong on this banner. Soren also has a lot of perks going for him. And even as the 4-star focus unit, Illyana, she's got a unique tome. And she's got a ruse skill for the beast, or a lull skill for the B slot. So I mean, she's really good fodder there too. So there's definitely things going for her on this banner, but I don't think it's a must summon. I don't, and I know a lot of people's orb reserves are hurting right now after last month. But of course, if you really like these characters, or they are some of your favorite characters, that's the most important thing as far as criteria for summoning. So, you know, have fun, have at it. Let me know in the comments below if you are excited for this banner, if you're excited for the theme, if you're excited for the representation and the characters, if you're excited for the kits, what you're looking forward to, if you are going to be summoning, who you're going to be summoning for. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, let's protect those skies.